there. There we go. Couple of hiccups there. Hi. Happy Wednesday. Right? Yeah, it's Wednesday. Wednesday, the 22nd of March. It is Wednesday, my dudes. It is Wednesday, my puppy. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at this guy. Yes? 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 Oh. He's like, hang on, you don't have any snacks. Does he have treats? He's had many treats today. I don't know if I feel right giving him any more. I don't have any treats here, though. Yeah. Yeah, he's had lots of bean sprouts and carrot and cucumber. And 2 big walks to burn off the calories from those calorie-dense food vegetables. I'm sleepsy. Surprise, surprise. Up pretty early this morning. Hopefully asleep pretty early tonight. That'd be nice. Presumably we're going to have a Mrs. Sharkey arriving. But, probably not a Mr. Sharkey. What? I'm gonna be very disappointed with this stream bin. Not gonna be any snacks for you. Ah! Speak of the Sharky. Hello! Happy Wednesday. How is this 22nd of March treating you? Why do I sound a little like a robot? Bonsoir. Oh, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you too. I'm assuming we just have one Sharky tonight? Or am I wrong? I'm not supposed to assume because of wizards. Both here. Oh, buongiorno. Well then, welcome Mr. Sharky as well. Okay. How have the rehearsals been treating you so far? Oh, I gotta be careful not to yawn too much tonight. I was just saying. Okay, Farmhouse. Okay. I was just saying that I'm a bit sleepy tonight. I got up a bit earlier than normal this morning and probably didn't have quite enough sleep to compensate for that. Ni hao? Oh, it was Pelup something, right? Rehearsals have been good. Salamat, that's right. Salamat Salamat Pagi? Yeah. was the morning one? Oh, okay. It's like riding a bike, right, Mr. Sharky? Everything's like riding a bike. Anything in the world can be compared to riding a bike. For example, riding a tricycle. It's just like riding a bike. Yeah, likewise. Well, yeah. No, it has. Even counting like television, it's been a few years. Except you didn't really believe you were riding a bike. Well, you weren't. It's like riding a bike. It's not actually riding a bike. There are some differences, but they're similar. For example, they both have pedals. So, we've been reading Witches Abroad. I see that's supposed to be Grebo, I think, on the borders of this cover. Yeah, where were we? Where did we start? They had some troubles on the river, leaving the mountain. And then I think they had some troubles in the river. Then they flew around for a bit and eventually made their way to kind of a creepy little town that had an interesting obsession with garlic and a castle looming overhead. And there was this bat that was rattling around their shutters before getting beamed by a garlic sausage and then stepped on by a grebo. So things are not looking up for that bat that we all believe is just a bat. And then we got a little taste of Genua, which has got that creepy enforced idyllicism. Is that a word? Idyllicism? Did I just make that up? You know, it's like, it's idyllic, but it's over the top and like everybody's smiling with gritted teeth. And, you know, looking over their shoulder constantly and being very careful to be positive all the time, because if you're not, you get thrown in jail or into, I don't know, some kind of brainwashing thing in jail or something. And then we met Mrs. Pleasant and Mrs. Gogol. We're not 100% certain what's up with Mrs. Pleasant, I think. She is a chef or a baker. I think a chef. A cook, anyways. She's a cook. And that might be it, but she definitely is aware of the role she is supposed to be playing. And Mrs. Gogol is, I believe, the voodoo woman. She'd really seen it in a bowl of jambalaya she'd prepared earlier. I don't think I've ever had a real authentic jambalaya. I've had, jambalaya from restaurants. But only, I think, restaurants around here. In BC. So I'm not confident in the authenticity of said jambalaya. Yeah. So, in my copy, we are now on page 91. Not gumbo, that would be inconceivable. It's just embarrassing. All you could see in a pot of Mrs. Gogol's gumbo was that the future certainly contained a very good meal. Gotta put on a show. Yeah. So, since I am quite sleepy, I'm gonna get into it. It's probably not going to be a super long reading session tonight. As a result, I don't want to nod off mid. You see me start doing that, I don't know. Type really loudly in the chat. Alright, here we go. Magrat lay with the wand under her pillow. I don't know if that's brave. Does this thing ever misfire? She wobbled gently between sleep and wakefulness. Certainly, she was the best person for the wand. There was no doubt about that. Sometimes, and she hardly dared give the thought headroom when she was under the same roof as Granny Weatherwax, she really wondered about the others' commitment to witchcraft. Half the time they didn't seem to bother. Take medicine, for example. Magrat knew she was much better than them at herbs. She'd inherited several large books on the subject from Goody Whemper, her predecessor in the cottage, and had essayed a few tentative notes of her own as well. She could tell people things about the uses of Devil's Bit Scabious that would interest them so much they'd rush off, presumably to look for someone else to tell. She could fractionally distill and double distill and do things that meant sitting up all night watching the color of the flame under the retort. She worked at it. Whereas Nanny just tended to put a hot poultice on everything and recommend a large glass of whatever the patient liked best, on the basis that since you were going to be ill anyway, you might as well get some enjoyment out of it. Magrat forbade her patients alcohol because of what it did to the liver. If they didn't know what it did to the liver, she spent some time telling them. And Granny, she just gave people a bottle of colored water and told them they felt a lot better. And what was so annoying was that they often did. Where was the witchcraft in that? With a wand, things could be different. Oh, exciting. All right, then. With a wand, though, things could be different. You could help people a lot with a wand. Magic was there to make life better. Magrat knew this in the pink, fluttering boudoir of her heart. she dipped under the surface of sleep again. And there was an odd dream. She never mentioned it to anyone afterward because, well, you didn't. Not things like that. But she thought she'd got up in the night, awakened by the silence, to get some more air. And as she passed the mirror, she saw a movement in it. It wasn't her face. It looked a lot like Granny Weatherwax. It smiled at her, a much nicer and friendlier smile than she'd ever got from Granny, Magrat recalled, and then vanished, the cloudy silver surface closing over it. She hurried back to bed and awoke to the sound of a brass band, engaged in unrelenting oompa. People were shouting and laughing. Why would there be a big celebration in the morning? Looked a lot like Granny, huh? Interesting, that. Magrat got dressed quickly, went out into the corridor, and knocked on the door of the older witches. There was no reply. She tried the handle. After she'd rattled it a couple of times, there was a thump as the chair wedged under the handle on the other side, the better to deter ravishers, burglars, and other nocturnal intruders, fell over. Granny Weatherwax's boots protruded from under the covers at one end of the bed. Nanny Ogg's bare feet, Nanny being something of a nighttime revolver, were beside them. Faint snores rattled the jug on the wash basin. These were no longer the full-nosed roars of a quick 40 winks catnapper, but the well-paced growls of someone who intends to make a night of it. Magrat knocked on the sole of Granny's boot. "Hey, wake up! Something's going on!" Granny Weatherwax, waking up, was quite an impressive sight, and one not seen by many people. Most people, on waking up, accelerate through a quick, panicky, pre-consciousness checkup. Who am I? Where am I? Who is he/she? Good God, why am I cuddling a policeman's helmet? What happened last night? And this is because people are riddled by doubt. Capital D. It is the engine that drives them through their lives. It is the elastic band in the little model airplane of their soul, and they spend their time winding it up until it knots. Early morning is the worst time. Early morning is the worst time, full stop. There's that little moment of panic in case you have drifted away in the night and something else has moved in. This never happened to Granny Weatherwax. She went straight from fast asleep to instant operation on all 6 cylinders. She never needed to find herself, because she always knew who was doing the looking. She sniffed. "Something's burning," she said. "They've got a bonfire, too," said Magrat. Granny sniffed again. "They're roasting garlic?" she said. "I know. I can't imagine why. They're ripping all the shutters off the windows and burning them in the square and dancing around the fire." I think we all know why. Granny Weatherwax gave Nanny Ogg a vicious jab with her elbow. "Wake up, you!" "What?" "I didn't get a wink of sleep all night," said Granny reproachfully. "What with her snoring." Nanny Ogg raised the covers cautiously. "It's far too early in the morning for it to be early in the morning," she said. "Come on," said Granny. "We needs your skill with languages." The owner of the inn flapped his arms up and down and ran around in circles. Then he pointed at the castle that towered over the forest. Then he sucked vigorously at his wrist. Then he fell over on his back. And then he looked expectantly at Nanny Ogg, while behind him the bonfire of garlic and wooden stakes and heavy window shutters burned merrily. "Now," said Nanny, after a while, "still non comprende, mein Herr." The man got up and brushed some dust off his leather breeches. "I think he's saying that someone's dead," said Magrat. "Someone in the castle." "Well, I must say, everyone seems very cheerful about it," said Granny Weatherwax severely. In the sunlight of the new day, the village looked far more cheerful. Everyone kept nodding happily at the witches. "That's because it was probably the landlord," said Nanny Ogg. "Bit of a bloodsucker, I think he's saying." "Ah, that'd be it then." Granny rubbed her hands together and looked approvingly at the breakfast table, which had been dragged out into the sunshine. "Anyway, the food has certainly improved. Pass the bread, Magrat." "Everyone keeps smiling and waving at us," said Magrat. "And look at all this food." "That's only to be expected," said Granny, with her mouth full. "They've only had us here one night, and already they're learning it's lucky to be kind to witches. Now help me get the lid off this honey." That was my best Granny with her mouth full. Under the table, Grebo sat and washed himself. Occasionally he burped. Vampires have risen from the dead, the grave, and the crypt, but have never managed it from the cat.
Jason and all at number 21, number 34, number 15, number 87, and number 61, but not at number 18 until she gives back the bowl she definitely borrowed, whatever she says. Well, here we are. Core, what a lark so far. Don't ask me about pumpkins. Still, no harm done. I'm drawing a picture of where we stayed last night. I have put an X on our room where our room is. The weather...
What are you doing, Githa? We're ready to leave. I have put an X on our room where our room is. Nanny Og looked up, her face still creased with the effort of composition.
I thought it would be nice to send something to our Jason. You know, to stop him worrying. So I done a drawing of this place on a piece of card, and mine hair here will give it to someone going our way. You never know, it might get there. Continues fine.
Nanny Og sucked the end of her pencil. Not for the first time in the universe. Someone for whom communication normally came as effortlessly as a dream was stuck for inspiration when faced with a few lines on the back of a card.
Well, that about wraps it up for now. We'll write...
It's spelled R-I-G-H-T, but then that's scribbled out.
Write...
W-R-I-G-H-T.
Again, soon. Mum! P.S. The cat is looking very peaky. I think he misses his home.
What? You don't like the cat? Not at all? You don't like the cat at all? That's right. You sound like a chicken.
Buck!
Will you come on, Githa? Magrat's getting my broom started for me.
P.P.S. Granny sends her love.
Nanny Og sat back, content in the knowledge of a job well done. Footnote. Nanny Og sent a number of cards home to her family, not a single one of which got back before she did. This is traditional, and happens everywhere in the universe. We're, still, just within the past month or so, getting back a Christmas card or two that we sent out that had the wrong address on it. Some of them went to the right place. Magrat reached the end of the town square and stopped to rest. Quite an audience had gathered to see a woman with legs. Oh, because of the trousers. I was like, as opposed to all of the women in this town don't have them? Because of the pants, yep. They were very polite about it. Somehow, that made it worse. It doesn't fly unless you run really fast, she explained, aware, even as she spoke, how stupid this sounded, especially if you were listening in a foreign language. I think it's called hump starting. She took a deep breath, scowled in concentration, and ran forward again. This time, it started. It jolted in her hands. The bristles rustled. She managed to slip it into neutral before it could drag her along the ground. One thing about Granny Weatherwax's broomstick, it was one of the very old-fashioned ones, built in the days when broomsticks were built to last and not fall apart with woodworm after 10 years. Was that, I see. That was an interjection there in the middle. So, one thing about Granny Weatherwax's broomstick, it was one of the very old-fashioned ones, built in the days when broomsticks were built to last and not fall apart with woodworm after 10 years, was that, while it might take some starting, when it went, it didn't hang about. Blah. That was a maze of a sentence. Magrat had once considered explaining the symbolism of the witch's broomstick to Granny Weatherwax, and decided not to. It would have been worse than the row about the significance of the maypole. Departure took some time. The villagers insisted on giving them little gifts of food. Nanny-Og made a speech, which no one understood, but which was generally cheered. Grebo, hiccuping occasionally, oozed into his accustomed place among the bristles of Nanny's broomstick. As they rose above the forest, a thin plume of smoke also rose from the castle. And then there were flames. "I see people dancing in front of it," said Magrat.
"Always a dangerous business, rentin' property," said Granny Weatherwax. "I expect he was a bit lax when it came to redecoratin' and repairing the roof and such like. People take against that kind of thing. My landlord hasn't done a hand's turn on my cottage the whole time I've been there," she added. "It's shameful. And me, an old woman, too."
"I thought you owned your place," said Magrat, as the broomsticks set off over the forest.
"She just ain't paid no rent for 60 years,
said Nanny-Og.
"Is that my fault?"
said Granny Weatherwax.
"It's not my fault. I'd be quite willing to pay."
She smiled, a slow, self-confident smile.
"All he has to do is ask," she added.
This is the Discworld, seen from above, its cloud formations circling in long, curved patterns. 3 dots emerged from the cloud layer. Let's see.
"I can see why traveling doesn't catch on. I call this boring. Nothing but forest for hours and hours."
"Yes, but flying gets you to places quickly, Granny."
No, wait, that one's probably Magrat. "Yes, but flying gets you to places quickly, Granny."
"How long have we been flying, anyway?"
"About 10 minutes since you last asked, Esme."
"You see? Boring."
I'm guessing at some of these.
"It's sitting on the sticks I don't like. I reckon there ought to be a special broomstick for going long distances, right? One you can stretch out on and have a snooze."
They all considered this.
"And have your meals on,"
added Nanny.
"Proper meals, I mean, with gravy, not just sandwiches and stuff."
An experiment in aerial cookery on a small oil burner had been hastily curtailed after it threatened to set fire to Nanny's broomstick. I suppose you could do it if you had a really big broomstick, said Magrat. About the size of a tree, perhaps. Then one of us could do the steering, and another one could do the cooking.
It'd never happen, said Nanny Og. The reason being, the dwarfs would make you pay a fortune for a stick that big.
Yes, but what you could do, said Magrat, warming to her subject, is get people to pay you to give them rides. There must be lots of people fed up with highwaymen and being seasick and that sort of thing.
How about it, Esme? Said Nanny Og. I'll do the steering, and Magrat'll do the cooking.
What shall I do, then?
Said Granny Weatherwax suspiciously. Oh, well, there ought to be someone to, you know, welcome people onto the stick and give them their meals, said Magrat. And tell them what to do if the magic fails, for example.
If the magic fails, everyone will crash into the ground and die,
Granny pointed out.
Yes, but someone will have to tell them how to do that,
said Nanny Og, winking at Magrat.
They won't know how to, not being experienced in flying.
And we could call ourselves... She paused. As always on the Discworld, which was right on the very edge of unreality, little bits of realness crept in whenever someone's mind was resonating properly. This happened now. 3 witches airborne, she said. How about that? 3 witches airborne. Actually, that one might have been Nanny again, because we're getting there. Broomsticks airborne, said Magrat. Or pan air.
There's no need to bring religion into it,
sniffed Granny. Nanny Og looked slyly from Granny to Magrat.
We could call it Ver,
she began. A gust of wind caught all 3 sticks and whirled them up. There was a brief panic as the witches brought them under control.
Load of nonsense,
muttered Granny.
Well, it passes the time,
said Nanny Og. Granny looked morosely at the greenery below.
You'd never get people to do it,
she said.
Load of nonsense.
Dear Jason en famille. A relief on the other side, please. Find enclosed a sketch of somewhere some king died and was buried. Search me why. It's in some village where we stopped last night.
W-E-A-R.
We had some stuff. It was chewy. You'll never guess it was snails. And not bad. And Esme had 3 helpings before she found out, and then had a row with the cook. And Magrat was sick all night just at the thought of it, and had the dire rear.
The dire rear.
Thinking of you, your loving mum. P.S. The privies here are disgusting. They have them indoors. So much for hygiene.
Several days passed. It was a quiet little inn in a tiny country. Granny Weatherwax. In a quiet little inn in a tiny country, Granny Weatherwax sat and regarded the food with deep suspicion. The owner hovered with the frantic expression of one who knows, even before he starts, that he's not going to come out of this ahead of the game.
Good, simple home cooking,
said Granny.
That's all I require. You know me. I'm not the demanding sort. No one could say I'm the demanding sort. I just want simple food. Not all grease and stuff. It comes to something when you complain about something in your lettuce, and it turns out to be what you ordered.
Simple food. Ugh. Nanny Og tucked her napkin into the top of her dress and said nothing.
Like that place last night,
said Granny.
You'd think you'd be all right with sandwiches, wouldn't you? I mean, sandwiches? Simplest food there is in the whole world. You'd think even foreigners couldn't get sandwiches wrong. Ha!
They didn't call them sandwiches, Granny, said Magrat, her eyes dwelling on the owner's frying pan. I think they called them smorgasbord.
That was nice, said Nanny Og. I'm very partial to a pickled herring.
But they must think we're daft, not noticing they'd left off the top slice,
said Granny triumphantly.
Well, I told them a thing or two. Another time they'll think twice before trying to swindle people out of a slice of bread that's theirs by rights.
I expect they will, said Magrat darkly.
And I don't hold with all this giving things funny names so people don't know what they're eating,
said Granny, determined to explore the drawbacks of international cookery to the full.
I like stuff that tells you plain what it is. Like, well, Bubble and Squeak, or
Spotted Dick,
said Nanny absently. She was watching the progress of the pancakes with some anticipation. I assumed that was Mrs. Yeah.
That's right. Decent, honest food. I mean, take that stuff we had for lunch. I'm not saying it wasn't nice,
said Granny graciously.
In a foreign sort of way, of course. But they called it Cwuissses de Grenolly. And who knows what that means?
Frog's legs,
translated Nanny, without thinking. The silence was filled with Granny Weatherwax taking a deep breath and a pale green color creeping across Magrat's face. Nanny Og now thought quicker than she had done for a very long time.
Not actual frog's legs, she said hurriedly. It's like Toad in the Hole is really only sausage and batter pudding. It's just a joke name.
It doesn't sound very funny to me,
said Granny. She turned to glare at the pancakes. Butter goose.
At least they can't muck up a decent pancake, she said. What did they call them here?
Crap, Suzette, I think,
said Nanny. Granny forbore to comment, but she watched with grim satisfaction as the owner finished the dish and gave her a hopeful smile.
Oh, now he expects us to eat them,
she said.
He only goes and sets fire to them, and then he still expects us to eat them.
It might later have been possible to chart the progress of the witches across the continent by some sort of demographic survey. Long afterward, in some quiet, onion-hung kitchens, in sleepy villages nestling among hot hills, you might have found cooks who wouldn't twitch and try to hide behind the door when a stranger came into the kitchen.
Dear Jason, it is definitely more warmer here. Margaret says it is because we are getting further from the hub, and, a funny thing, all the money is different. You have to change it for other money, which is all different shapes and is not proper money at all, in my opinion. We generally let Esme sort that out. She gets a very good rate of exchange. It is amazing. Margaret says she will write a book called Traveling on $1 a Day, and it's always the same dollar. Esme is getting to act just like a foreigner. Yesterday, she took her shawl off. Next thing, it will be dancing on tables. This is a picture of some famous bridge or other. Lots of love, Mum.
Shall we keep going till about 8? Does that sound good? Or are people good with earlier than 8 today? If I were any good at drawing, alright, we'll keep going then. Even not good at drawing. Just a little note on one side of the card and then a crayon sketch on the other. Every single one's got a rainbow. Even if you have to squish it into the corner. The sun beat down on the cobbled street, and particularly on the courtyard of a little inn. "It's hard to imagine," said Magrat, "that it's autumn back home."
Garcon, mucho vino avec ze, gracias.
The innkeeper, who did not understand one word, and was a good-natured man who certainly did not deserve to be called a Garcon, smiled at Nanny. He'd smile at anyone with such an unlimited capacity for drink.
I don't hold with putting all these tables out in the street, though,
said Granny Weatherwax, although without much severity. It was pleasantly warm. It wasn't that she didn't like autumn. It was a season she always looked forward to. But, at her time of life, it was nice to know that it was happening hundreds of miles away while she wasn't there. Underneath the table, Grebo dozed on his back with his legs in the air. Aw, baby. Occasionally, He twitched as he fought wolves in his sleep. "It says in Desiderata's notes," said Magrat, turning the stiff pages carefully, "that in the late summer here they have this special traditional ceremony where they let a lot of bulls run through the street."
"That'd be something worth seeing," said Granny Weatherwax. "Why do they do it?"
"So all the young men can chase them to show how brave they are," said Magrat. "Apparently they pull their rosettes off." A variety of expressions passed across Nanny Ogg's wrinkled face, like weather over a stretch of volcanic badlands.
"Sounds a bit strange," she said at last. "What do they do that for?"
"She doesn't explain it very clearly," said Magrat. She turned another page. Her lips moved as she read on. "What does Cojones mean?" Cojones. Yes, I know it's pronounced cojones, but Magrat doesn't know that. They shrugged.
"Here, you want to slow down on that drink,"
said Granny, as a waiter put down another bottle in front of Nanny Ogg.
"I wouldn't trust any drink that's green."
"It's not like proper drink,"
said Nanny.
"It says on the label it's made from herbs. You can't make a serious drink out of just herbs. Try a drop."
Jessikuma, hello. Welcome. We're reading Witches Abroad by Sir Terry Pratchett. Absinthe, you think? I'm Sleet, by the way. Hi. Well, Granny sniffed the opened bottle.
"Smells like aniseed,"
she said.
"It says absinthe on the bottle,"
said Nanny. There you go. You nailed it. How's it going, Jessikuma? "Oh, that's just the name for wormwood," said Magrat, who was good at herbs. "My herbal says it's good for stomach disorders," spelled with an F, D-I-F, disorders, "and prevents sickness after meals." Sickness.
"There you are then,"
said Nanny.
"Herbs. It's practically medicine."
She poured a generous measure for the other two. Oh, good. Happy to hear it. I saw you followed about a week ago. Appreciate it. Are you a Pratchett fan? Have you read any of the other Discworld books? We've read a few on the stream now. This is... How many have we read of? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our fourth, I think. This is fourth tea. Farmouse likes absinthe. In very small quantities. It's been a long time since I've had any. You're familiar? Yeah, he's a fantastic author. And this has been a bit... Look, I pretend I have a treat, even though I don't have a treat right now. So he come say hi. Disappointed. All right. Well. Don't tease the pup. He's had lots of snacks today. It's okay. The face of betrayal. As he licks his... Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I have fun reading these, or doing the voices and such. It's okay. Oh, wait. Yeah, I'll have to get him something after we're done. Okay, so where was I? Nanny poured a generous measure for the other two. Granny and Magrat having some absinthe, huh? This should be fun.
Give it a go, Magrat. It'll put a chest on your chest.
Granny Weatherwax surreptitiously loosened her boots. She was also debating whether to remove her vest. She probably didn't need all three.
We ought to be getting on,
she said.
Oh, I'm fed up with the broomsticks,
said Nanny.
More than a couple of hours on a stick and I've gone rigid in the dairy air.
Loosening her boots? Removing one of her 3 vests? Granny! Soon she's going to be dancing on tables. She looked expectantly at the other two.
That foreign for bum,
she added.
Although, it's a funny thing. In some foreign parts, bum means tramp, and tramp means hobo. Funny things, words.
A laugh a minute,
said Granny. The river's quite wide here, said Magrat. There's big boats. I've never been on a proper boat. You know, the kind that doesn't sink easily.
Broomsticks is more witchy,
said Granny, but not with much conviction. She did not have Nanny Ogg's international anatomical vocabulary, but bits of her, she wouldn't even admit to knowing the names of, were definitely complaining.
I saw them boats,
said Nanny.
They looked like great big rafts with houses on. You wouldn't hardly know you're on a boat, Esme. Here, what's he doing?
The innkeeper had hurried out and was taking the jolly little tables back inside. He nodded at Nanny and spoke with a certain amount of urgency. I think he wants us to go inside, said Magrat.
I likes it out here,
said Granny.
I likes it out here, thank you,
she repeated. Granny Weatherwax's approach to foreign tongues was to repeat herself loudly and slowly. Surprise, surprise.
There, you stop trying to take our table away,
snapped Nanny, thumping his hands. The innkeeper spoke hurriedly and pointed up the street. Granny and Magrat glanced inquiringly at Nanny Ogg. She shrugged.
Didn't understand any of that,
she admitted.
We're stopping where we are. Thank you,
said Granny. The innkeeper's eyes met hers. He gave in, waved his hands in the air in exasperation, and went inside. They think they can take advantage of you when you're a woman, said Magrat. She stifled a burp, discreetly, and picked up the green bottle again. Her stomach was feeling a lot better already.
That's very true. Do you know what?
Said Nanny Ogg.
I barricaded myself in my room last night, and the man didn't even try to break in.
Githa Og, sometimes you.
Granny stopped, as she caught sight of something over Nanny's shoulder.
There's a load of cows coming down the street,
she said. Nanny turned her chair around.
It must be that bull thing Magrat mentioned,
she said.
Should be worth saying.
Magrat glanced up. All along the street, people were craning out of every second-story window. A jostle of horns and hooves and steaming bodies was approaching rapidly. "There's people up there laughing at us," she said accusingly. Under the table, Grebo stirred and rolled over. He opened his good eye, focused on the approaching bulls, and sat up. This looked like being fun. "Laughin'?" said Granny. She looked up. The people aloft did indeed appear to be enjoying a joke. Her eyes narrowed. "We're just going to carry on as if nothing is happening," she declared. "But they're quite big bulls," said Magrat nervously. "They're nothing to do with us," said Granny. "It's nothing to do with us if a lot of foreigners want to get excited about things. Now pass me the herbal wine." Let's see. Looks like let's get through another 2 pages, which shouldn't take too long, and then we'll see how everybody's feeling. As far as Lagro Tecabona, innkeeper, could remember the events of that day, they seemed to happen like this. It was the time of the thing with the bulls, and the mad women just sat there, drinking absinthe as if it was water. He tried to get them to come indoors, but the old one, the skinny one, just shouted at him. So he let them bide, but left the door open. People soon got the message when the bulls came down the street, with the young men of the village after them. Whoever snatched the big red rosette from between the horns of the biggest bull got the seat of honor at that night's feast, plus, Lagro smiled a smile of 40 years' remembrance, a certain, informal, but highly enjoyable relationship with the young women of the town for quite some time after. And the mad women just sat there. The leading bull had been a bit uncertain about this. Its normal course of action would be to roar and paw the ground a bit, to get the targets running in an interesting way, and its mind wasn't able to cope with this lack of attention. But that hadn't been its major problem, because its major problem had been 20 other bulls right behind it. And even that ceased to be its major problem, because the terrible old woman, the one all in black, had stood up, muttered something at it, and smacked it between the eyes. Then the horrible dumpy one, whose stomach had the resilience and capacity of a galvanized water tank, fell backward off her chair, laughing, and the young one, that is, the one who was younger than the other two, started flapping at the bulls as if they were ducks. And then the street was full of angry, bewildered bulls, and a lot of shouting, terrified young men. It's one thing to chase a lot of panicking bulls, and quite another to find that they're suddenly trying to run the other way. The innkeeper, from the safety of his bedroom window, could hear the horrible women shouting things to one another. The dumpy one kept laughing and shouting some sort of battle cry.
"Try the horseman's word as me!"
And then the younger one, who was pushing her way through the animals as if being gored to death, was something that only happened to other people, found the lead bull and took the rosette off it, with the same air of concern as an old woman may take a thorn out of her cat's paw. She held it as if she didn't know what it was, or what she should do with it. The sudden silence affected even the bulls. Their tiny little bloodshot brains sensed something wrong. The bulls were embarrassed. "Hey, Bear. It's nice to see you." "Oh, yeah, this old thing? Ah, shucks. Yeah, your hours have been changing quite a lot, haven't they?" "Well, it's good to see you. I'll try to pop in on your stream sometime soon. Hope work's treating you well." I think we're just about done here anyways, so no worries in that regard. Where were we? Their tiny little bloodshot brains sensed something wrong. The bulls were embarrassed. Back to second shift. I'm still doing my same Wednesdays and Fridays, although it's been a little... We're still trying to sell the place. We've had a lot of showings recently, so sometimes it's up in the air a bit. All is well. That's good. I am happy to hear that. The bulls were embarrassed for the third time. In this tough market. Ugh. We've been close a few times, and we had a showing yesterday, which sounded like it went well, so fingers crossed. Fortunately, the horrible women left on a riverboat that afternoon, after one of them rescued her cat, which had cornered 25 stone of confused bull, and was trying to toss it in the air and play with it. That evening, L'Agro Te Cabona made a point of being very, very kind to his old mother. You have a good night, too. Good luck at work. Hope the rest of your shift goes well. And the village held a flower festival next year, and no one ever talked about the thing with the bulls ever again. At least, not in front of the men. Alright, I'm gonna stop there. A little choppy at the end, but 3 drunk witches just destroying the thing with the bulls. I like how their name for it was just the thing with the bulls. Oh, I'm gonna adjust the camera. Hold tight. What? He was just there. What? Now he's over here. Sneaky puppy. He's like, no. I'm embarrassed. He just, I see. He was all cuddled up in the nap nook. Oh, the thing with the bulls. Apparently Magrat was the one who grabbed the rosette. Was it Magrat? I think that he said it was the young one. The younger one who was pushing... Yeah, it was the younger one. especially worried tonight. He's worried that he's not getting snacks. You like snacks? Snacks. Speaking of, I'm feeling kind of peckish, which is weird because I've eaten fairly recently. There's not much reason to be, but maybe I'll find a little something to snack on before bedtime. I'm almost done, don't you worry. Alright, well, hopefully everybody is having a good time. So far tonight they went from they left Dracula's village, where they apparently finished off Dracula. And I'm pretty sure they traveled through France. And then into Italy, I suppose. Or Spain, I don't know. Oh, his eyes are drooping. Did I miss any others? I think it was just those. Or just somewhere multicultural. No, I think they passed through a few places. Because we had the different postcards from Nanny. So where they had the snails. Stop and Discworld's version of Sweden. Where they had the snails, I'm pretty sure that was supposed to be France. And then I think they went somewhere else where the the thing with the bulls was. Oh yeah, smorgasbord board. Snails and frog legs, right. I think they've been kind of hopping from country to country. Where they tried to steal their top slice of bread. How dare they? No, it was crap, Suzette. Are you sleepy? Oh. Well. Oh. Yeah, I'm having fun with this book. Yes, that's true. You got many long walk today. While we played Pokemon Go. Oh, crick. Went to Kung Fu yesterday and my shoulders are a little stiff. That's where this happened. That's why my knuckles looking all beat up, in case you were wondering. Though I'm not as sore overall as I might be. We'll see how I feel tomorrow. Usually it's like not the following day, but the day after that. So tomorrow might be the one where I am all stiff. We'll see. Maybe I'll get lucky. I did have a bath last night to soak out some of the aches, so maybe I'll be alright. Anyway, hopefully everyone's enjoying the book so far. Yeah, I'm having fun with it myself. It's a fun book. I feel like this book's a little more fun than Weird Sisters. Weird Sisters was good, and it was entertaining. There's a lot of references and things, right? A lot of references to various plays and whatnot. But just the traveling in this one, I feel like there's just a lot more it's a little more episodic, I suppose. Lots of little story things happening. So it's entertaining. Yeah. So I should be back here on Friday. Hey, thanks for joining in on the chat, Jesse. Next time you'll have to tell me about yourself. I'm curious who Jesse Kuma is. Really. But I'm going to wrap things up. Let's see, is anybody on my list? Not really. No, I'm just going to wrap things up tonight. Have a lovely evening, everyone. I'll be back here on Friday, same time, 7 o'clock PST. Whatever that works out to where you are. And yeah, have a good night. Have a good rest of your week. Hopefully it's nice and sunny there. It was really warm here today. So maybe get some sunshine if you can. See you on Friday, hopefully. Bye.